The morning had been quiet, almost too quiet for a girl like Emily Carter. She was the kind of student people hardly noticed, the one who slipped into the classroom, sat in the back, and kept her head buried in books. Her long dark hair was usually tied in a neat ponytail that framed her pale face, and her brown eyes rarely made direct contact with anyone else's. She was soft-spoken, polite, and never raised her voice, not even when pushed or teased. To many, she was invisible, but to bullies, she was the easiest target to make themselves feel superior. It was her silence, her unwillingness to fight back, that painted her as weak in their eyes. But what no one knew was that silence did not mean weakness. Behind those quiet eyes was a storm, a past filled with painful lessons, and a strength forged not from words, but from discipline and resilience. The hallway between classes was always chaotic, students yelling, laughing, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Emily usually kept her eyes down, holding her books tightly against her chest, just trying to make it to the next class unnoticed. But fate had a different plan that day.
"Hey, loser!"
A sharp voice echoed. It was Jason Miller, the star football player, flanked by his usual crew of followers. Jason was tall, broad-shouldered, and walked with the arrogant swagger of someone who believed the school belonged to him. His ego was as inflated as his biceps, and his reputation for tormenting others was as famous as his touchdowns. His favorite targets were always the quiet ones, the ones he thought would never stand up for themselves, and Emily had been in his sights for weeks. She tried to keep walking, her steps quickening, but Jason blocked her path with a smirk that could freeze blood. His friends snickered behind him, waiting for the show. "You deaf or something?" Jason sneered. Stepping closer, I said, "Hey, loser." Emily's grip on her books tightened. She kept her eyes down, hoping the teacher patrolling the hall would appear. But the hallway was unusually empty, and her heart sank. Jason's grin widened. He loved this. The power, the fear in her eyes, the control he had over her. He raised his hand, and before Emily could react, the sound cracked through the hallway. Slop! The sting burned across her cheek. Gasps erupted from a few nearby students, and Jason's friends burst into cruel laughter. Emily's head snapped to the side, her hair falling into her face. For a moment the world went silent. Her chest heaved, her vision blurred, not from tears but from something far more dangerous. Her fingers trembled, not from fear but from restraint. She had promised herself to stay quiet, to stay out of trouble, to never reveal the training her father had drilled into her since she was a child. Her father, a decorated martial artist who had spent years teaching her self-defense, had always said, "Only fight when you have no choice. When words no longer protect you, let your fists speak." And right now, Jason had stolen every word from her mouth. Jason leaned in, his voice dripping with mockery. "What's the matter? Gonna cry? Gonna run to the teacher?" His hand lifted again, preparing for another slap, his friends egging him on. But Emily's head snapped back up. Her eyes locked onto his, and for the first time Jason saw something he wasn't expecting. Not fear, not weakness, but fire. Her body moved before his hand could come down again. In one swift, fluid motion, her book dropped to the floor with a thud. Her hand shot out, gripping Jason's wrist mid-air. He tried to yank it back, but her grip was iron. Gasps rippled through the hallway. "What the?" Jason began, but the words never finished. With a sharp pivot of her body, Emily twisted his arm downward. Jason's smirk vanished as pain flashed across his face. Before he could regain control, she stepped in, her knee bent, and with precise timing, she snapped his elbow backward in a joint lock so brutal, the sickening crack echoed louder than his slap ever had. Jason screamed, a raw, animalistic cry that silenced the hallway. His friends stumbled back, wide-eyed, frozen. The football star who thought he was untouchable was now on his knees, clutching his arm, tears welling in his eyes from the searing pain. Emily's face was cold, calm, and terrifyingly composed. She didn't shout. She didn't curse. She simply let go, letting him fall, watching him writhe on the ground. For years she had swallowed every insult, every shove, every laugh at her expense. But this was the line. Whispers exploded around her. She broke his arm. "Did you see that? Jason's done for?" Phones appeared, students recording the moment, unable to believe what they were seeing. The quiet girl, the nobody, had just taken down the king of the hallway with nothing but precision and strength. But the shock wasn't over. Just as Jason's friends tried to step forward, as if to defend him, Emily's eyes shifted to them with a glare that stopped them cold. Her stance, though subtle, radiated danger. Her shoulders squared, her fists slightly clenched. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence screamed louder than any words could. And then came the sound of footsteps, heels clicking against the floor. A teacher, Mr. Daniels, the history teacher, turned the corner just as Jason cried out, clutching his elbow. His eyes darted between Emily, calm and standing tall, and Jason writhing like a wounded animal. What on earth happened here? Mr. Daniels shouted, rushing forward. The students looked at each other, unsure who would speak. Jason, through gritted teeth, pointed with his good arm.
She attacked me! She broke my arm!
The crowd gasped again. Jason, the bully, the tormentor, was now playing the victim. Mr. Daniels turned to Emily, his brows furrowed. Emily, is this true? Emily stood frozen for a moment. The weight of the choice pressed on her. Speak up and risk suspension, maybe expulsion, or stay silent and let Jason twist the story. Her chest rose and fell, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. But before she could answer, a voice from the crowd shouted,
He slapped her first! We all saw it!
Another chimed in.
Yeah, she was just defending herself!
Phones lifted, videos already captured the slap, the twist, the crack. The truth was spreading faster than Jason's lies. Mr. Daniels turned to Jason, his expression hardening. Is that true, Jason? You hit her. Jason's face reddened, sweat dripping down his temple. He knew he was cornered, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it. She overreacted. He spat, his pain evident, but Emily's silence spoke volumes. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just stood there, her gaze locked on Jason, unflinching, unwavering. And in that moment, the entire hallway realized something life-changing. Emily Carter was no longer invisible. She was untouchable. The hallway had been left in stunned silence after the crack of Jason's elbow echoed through it. Even after Mr. Daniels rushed Jason off to the nurse, the whispers didn't stop. Students replayed the video over and over, some gasping, some cheering under their breath. A girl who no one had paid attention to, the quiet one in the back of every class, had just toppled the king of the school without breaking a sweat. By lunchtime, the story had spread to every corner of the building. Emily Carter broke Jason Miller's arm, was whispered in the cafeteria, the gym, the classrooms. Everyone had a version, but the videos left no room for doubt. Emily sat at a corner table, as usual, her tray untouched. She could feel the eyes burning into her from every direction. Her cheek still stung from the slap, but she didn't flinch. She kept her shoulders squared, her gaze lowered, but inside her chest was on fire. Not with shame, not with guilt, but with a strange mixture of relief and fear. Relief because she had finally stopped Jason. Fear because she knew this wasn't over. Bullies like Jason didn't just vanish. They struck back harder when their pride was wounded. A shadow fell across her table. She glanced up and saw a group of girls from the cheerleading squad staring down at her. Their leader, Megan, smirked, arms crossed. I don't know what you think you're doing, she said, her voice dripping with mockery, but you're gonna regret messing with Jason. Emily met her gaze for a brief moment before returning her eyes to her tray. She didn't respond. What, you think you're some kind of badass now? Megan sneered. You're nothing, Carter. Jason's gonna make sure you get kicked out of this school. Her friends giggled behind her, but Emily stayed silent. She had no interest in fighting with words. Words could be twisted, thrown back at her. Actions, though, actions could never be denied. Just then, another voice cut through. Leave her alone. Megan. It was Alex Rivera, one of Jason's teammates, but unlike the others, Alex never joined in on the bullying. He was quiet, thoughtful, and had always kept his distance from the drama. He stepped forward, his jaw clenched. I saw what happened. Jason had it coming. Megan rolled her eyes, tossing her hair. Oh, please. You're just jealous. Jason's the real star. She leaned closer to Emily. Enjoy your little 15 minutes, freak, because once Jason's back, you're done. They sauntered off, leaving Emily alone again. Alex lingered for a moment. Hey, you okay? He asked softly. Emily hesitated, then gave the faintest nod. I'm fine. He studied her for a second as if he wanted to say more, but finally walked away. That afternoon, Emily was called to the principal's office. The walls seemed to close in as she sat across from Principal Harris, a stern woman with sharp glasses and an even sharper tone. Mr. Daniels was there too, arms crossed, his eyes cautious. Emily, Principal Harris began, her voice cool. We've had a very serious incident today. Jason Miller has been taken to the hospital with a severe arm injury. He claims you assaulted him." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, but Principal Harris raised her hand. "Now, before you say anything, I've seen the footage." She gestured to her computer screen, paused on the video showing Jason's slap. "It's clear you were provoked. He struck you first. You were defending yourself." Emily let out a small breath. "However," the principal continued, leaning forward, "your response was extreme. You could have simply blocked him, stepped away, reported him. But instead, you inflicted a serious injury." The silence was heavy. Emily's fingers dug into her palms beneath the desk. She wanted to scream that she hadn't chosen this, that Jason had left her no choice, that every time she had walked away in the past had only given him permission to hurt her again. But she stayed calm. Principal Harris sighed. "Given the evidence, I cannot expel you, but there will be consequences. You'll be suspended for 3 days. Jason, however, will face disciplinary action for the assault." Emily nodded slowly, accepting it. Suspension didn't scare her. She could handle time away. What mattered was that Jason had finally been stopped, at least for now. When she stepped out of the office, Alex was waiting by the lockers. He looked at her, his brows furrowed. "So, suspended," she said simply. He nodded. "Better than expelled. You did the right thing, Emily. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her lips twitched in the faintest smile. It had been a long time since anyone had said something kind to her. The next few days at home were strange. Her father noticed the bruise on her cheek when she walked in that day. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice low, dangerous. She hesitated, then told him everything. The slap, the hallway, the elbow. Her father's eyes darkened but then softened as he placed a hand on her shoulder. "I told you to only fight when you had no choice. And it sounds like you had no choice." He studied her carefully. "Are you afraid?" Emily thought about it. Jason's scream still echoed in her head, the crack of his elbow, the look in his eyes when he realized he wasn't the predator anymore. But fear, no, not anymore. She shook her head. Her father gave a proud nod. "Then you're stronger than most people will ever know." When Emily returned to school after suspension, everything had changed. Whispers followed her everywhere, but they weren't mocking anymore. They were filled with awe, even respect. Some kids looked at her with fear, others with admiration. For the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. Jason, on the other hand, returned in a sling, his arm wrapped tight. The swagger in his step was gone. He avoided her gaze, his pride shattered. His friends kept their distance, unsure if standing by him was worth the risk. Even Megan had stopped glaring at Emily, as if realizing the fight had already been lost. In the gym one day, Emily caught Jason staring at her from across the court. His eyes were filled with hatred, but also something else, hesitation. He wanted revenge, but deep down, he knew what would happen if he tried. And that knowledge ate at him more than the pain in his arm ever could. Emily walked past him, her head held high, not a word leaving her lips. She didn't need to prove herself anymore. She had already spoken in the only language Jason understood, power. By the end of the week, a shift had happened. Other students who had been bullied began to approach her, quietly, nervously. A freshman boy whispered, "Thank you. He used to shove me every day." A girl from her math class admitted, "You gave me hope. I didn't think anyone could stop him." Emily didn't respond with long speeches. She simply nodded, her silence more powerful than any words could ever be. And though Jason still glared, still simmered, he never touched her again. The hallway that had once been a prison became her stage of victory. Emily Carter was no longer the quiet girl. She was the girl who snapped a bully's elbow before the teacher arrived, the girl who showed everyone that silence was not weakness. It was strength waiting for the right moment to strike. And from that day forward, no one dared to forget it.